Gene Hackman, an icon of classic Hollywood. A man who won 2 Oscars, starred in countless critically acclaimed films, and then vanished from Tinseltown's spotlight, only to leave behind a shocking story nobody anticipated. For decades, movie fans knew him only as the actor with a powerful presence. Off-screen, his life was far more complicated. When news of his passing quietly emerged, it set off a tidal wave of revelations. His family believed they understood the man behind the fame, but the real truth, a fortune exceeding $80 million, squirreled away in shadowy funds and unknown investments, plus a series of unsent letters and secrets that, when uncovered, rocked the Hackman family to its very core. Stay with us as we reveal how Gene Hackman's hidden wealth tore apart the bonds of his own flesh and blood, exposed a lifetime of regrets, and left behind a haunting question. Who was Gene Hackman, really? In Hollywood, disappearing from the limelight can be a career death sentence. For Gene Hackman, it was salvation, or so he believed. By the late 1990s, Hackman had already cemented his status as one of America's greatest living actors. Known for The French Connection, Superman, and Unforgiven, he was no stranger to critical and commercial success. And yet, in his final years, he chose to withdraw completely. Instead of glitzy farewell parties or triumphant final interviews, Hackman chose the unassuming landscape of Santa Fe, New Mexico. A tiny house, acres of sprawling wild land, and a simple bike ride each morning. Locals whispered about the tall, wiry man with deep-set eyes. Could that really be Gene Hackman, the Hollywood legend? Before long, he'd become just another quiet retiree, reclusive, self-reliant, and unwilling to speak of his former life. As the years passed, rumors about Hackman's private world began to swirl. Some believed he was writing a memoir, others speculated he was recovering from undisclosed health issues. In rare interviews, he brushed away questions of his personal life. "I've said everything I need to say," he famously told a reporter once, but behind the scenes, something darker was taking shape. Phone calls his family never received, subtle signs of illness he refused to discuss, like unexplained falls from his bicycle or chest pains he dismissed as nothing. The seeds of familial tension had been planted long before he left Hollywood, but in those final silent years, they grew into a thorny, unspoken chasm. Gene Hackman's personal life was complicated at best. He had 3 children with his first wife, Faye Maltese. The marriage crumbled after 30 years, and what remained was a painful distance that outlasted the official divorce. His children, particularly his daughter Elizabeth, would later speak out about his emotional absence. Growing up, they saw their father more on the silver screen than in their own living room. He provided financial comfort, lavish gifts, perhaps an expensive car for a birthday, but genuine closeness was scarce. Late-night phone calls or father-daughter bonding were rare, replaced by second-hand accounts of Hackman's busy filming schedules. When he remarried Betsy Arakawa, a pianist 30 years his junior, the family rifts persisted. Each child felt a quiet disappointment that lingered, shaping every future interaction with their father. If there was any emotion left unspoken, it was heartbreak. Over time, phone calls for birthdays grew shorter, holiday gatherings ceased altogether, and the unresolved hurt hardened into layers of resentment. Those who knew Hackman suspect he retreated to Santa Fe to escape more than just Hollywood. He was running from ghosts of family conflict. Gene Hackman passed away in near silence. The news was announced in a local paper, overshadowed by bigger headlines that day. His death, however, unleashed something far greater than media coverage. It opened a door to a labyrinth of financial puzzles. At first, his family discovered an old 2001 will. It listed the Santa Fe property, a classic Hudson Hornet car, and a modest bank account. In total, they barely scratched $5 million. But how could a double Oscar winner who starred in blockbuster after blockbuster have left so little? Suspicion ignited. The deeper they probed, the more they found. Phantom companies, anonymous investments, and an entire constellation of wealth hidden just out of reach. That's when the sum of Hackman's empire, exceeding $80 million, began to emerge. Hackman wasn't just a brilliant actor, he was a master of secrecy. Once the family's lawyer and financial experts sifted through old boxes and handwritten notes in the Santa Fe house, they unearthed a meticulous network of shell companies, real estate investments sprinkled across Nevada, technology startups in Silicon Valley, solar farms in rural New Mexico. Each project was orchestrated with the same deliberate caution Hackman used to craft his best on-screen performances. All the money traced back to a single account established in 1993, right after he secured his second Oscar. From there, funds flowed to multiple continents. The question that haunted everyone was why? Why hide millions of dollars from the very people who shared his last name? The Hackman family's search took a poignant turn when they discovered a stack of unsent letters. Each letter was addressed to someone close, his eldest son Christopher, his daughter Elizabeth, or to himself, scrawled in a shaky hand. They revealed the broken contours of Gene Hackman's conscience. One letter from 1995 read, "I was never meant to belong to anyone, not even my own family." Another letter to Elizabeth confessed, "I always thought I was protecting you by keeping my distance. Now I wonder if I was just protecting myself." These short, trembling words peeled back the layers of Hackman's remote exterior. He was a father twisted between duty, regret, and an overwhelming fear of vulnerability. Fame had cost him so much more than time. It cost him genuine human connection with those who mattered most. But the emotional upheaval was only the beginning. Among Hackman's extensive records lay a secret fund, a single cryptic acronym, GH Legacy. No one in the family recognized it. Its conditions were ironclad, and more than that, they were unsettling. According to the hidden clauses, no family member was to attempt to open or liquidate the fund. Any such attempt would result in immediate loss of inheritance. The fund's details were sealed behind shell corporations, untraceable accounts, and puzzling legal disclaimers. Even his wife, Betsy Arakawa, who had lived beside Hackman in relative peace, was stunned. She recalled that whenever she tried to ask about his money, about certain phone calls or business trips, he shut her out. "There are things you shouldn't know," he would say. With Hackman gone, those things became an unbreakable wall, blocking the entire family from a piece of his fortune. The emotions swirling around the Hackman estate soon erupted. For Christopher, reading his father's letter sparked rage. "He never trusted us," he fumed. "Even in death, he controls everything." Elizabeth sank into tears, clinging to the handful of nostalgic memories she still cherished, like catching glimpses of her father reading the newspaper on a rare Sunday morning. For Betsy, it was a tsunami of revelations. The man she believed was her devoted partner had hidden entire chapters of his life, including financial dealings with suspicious figures, one known as Frankie the Fox Catalano, rumored to be linked to Hollywood's shadowy underworld. Lawyers were hired, private investigators started combing through decades of statements, and each new discovery chipped away at the Hackman family's already fragile unity. In the end, it all pointed back to control. Whether it was controlling his own narrative in Hollywood or controlling how much of himself he gave to his children, Hackman had lived life on his own rigid terms. The will, now expanded with addendums found in hidden boxes, laid down strict rules. The family could not exploit Hackman's name for memoirs, documentaries, or any commercial venture. Any disputes or legal battles surrounding the estate must remain strictly confidential. Most importantly, the untouched fund was off limits, a forbidden zone Hackman guarded even from beyond the grave. The result was a staggering inheritance that felt more like a burden than a blessing. It sparked heartbreak, not celebration, an irony that might have fit right into one of Hackman's own noir film roles. As investigators pored over the transactions, another unsettling story emerged, evidence that Hackman had ties to people with questionable reputations. A small note was scrawled across one financial entry. Old debts paid one way or another. Speculations ran wild. Was Hackman paying off someone to keep personal scandals under wraps? Could it be he'd stepped into Hollywood's murky corners early in his career? While no concrete proof could confirm these rumors, the ghost of Frankie the Fox hovered over the newly discovered financial documents, fueling theories that Gene Hackman had done whatever it took to shield his private life and keep his star persona untarnished. In a locked study on the second floor of the Santa Fe house, off limits for years, Hackman's family found the most personal discoveries yet. Stacks of old scripts, partly autobiographical, indicated a dream. Hackman yearned to direct a film about his own life. One script, poignantly titled The Last Confession, began with the line, "If there is an afterlife, I want to be born without anyone knowing who I am." Marginal notes revealed Hackman wrestling with guilt. Being famous sometimes means selling your soul. How many have I betrayed to keep the name Gene Hackman? He had never sent these scripts to any studio or producer. They remained locked away, along with personal diaries scrawled with confessions of loneliness, regrets, and, strangely enough, a spark of hope that in death, perhaps his family could find closure. Yet, in the midst of heartbreak, there was one final secret that showed another side of Hackman. Hidden among the accounts was a $10 million fund named The Other Gene. This fund channeled the majority of his future film royalties into scholarships and schools for underprivileged children. an anonymous act of atonement for his own difficult childhood. Hackman's letter to his personal lawyer read, "If I could relive my life, I'd want to start where nobody knows my name. I want to be a normal child with shoes that aren't torn, with meals that don't revolve around fear of tomorrow." With those words, the Hollywood superstar bared his last layer of vulnerability, revealing how haunted he remained by his impoverished upbringing, and how that fear, that drive for self-preservation, may have shaped every decision he ever made. When the dust settled, the Hackman family was left with two things: an immense fortune tangled in complicated legal constraints, and a mountain of unresolved emotional wounds. For Christopher, each film role Hackman played was a reminder of the father he never truly knew. For Elizabeth, each overshadowed success was a reflection of the father she wanted to idolize, but who had closed himself off. Though Hackman left letters expressing regret and sorrow, he'd never offered them in person. The question remains whether that acknowledgement, that remorse from beyond the grave, would ever be enough to bridge the gap he'd created in life. Gene Hackman once said in an interview, "If my job is to bring characters to life, then I should keep a part of myself hidden from view." That approach produced legendary performances, but may also have fueled a deep isolation. In chasing cinematic immortality, he lost the simplest joys of fatherhood. He spent decades building a fortress around his emotions, letting fame eclipse the man he might have been otherwise. So often, we see celebrities through the lens of tabloids and award shows, yet behind every star is a complex individual, one who pays a price for the unwavering gaze of the spotlight. For Gene Hackman, that price was steep, and in many ways, it was paid by his children too. In the end, Gene Hackman left a legacy both magnificent and tragic. Over $80 million scattered across hidden accounts, a reclusive life in the New Mexico desert, and diaries bursting with unsent apologies. The family who bore his name found themselves in the eye of a storm, haunted by unanswered questions, cryptic funds, and a father who never fully stepped out of his own shadow. It's tempting to see Hackman as a villain in his family's story, but perhaps he was simply a man burdened by a lifetime of expectation. A man raised in hardship, forging a path to stardom at any cost, even if it meant shutting people out. His final gesture, the other Gene, offers a glimmer of redemption, suggesting that beneath the control and secrecy, there was also empathy and a longing to right old wrongs. And so we end where Gene Hackman's own scripts ended, on a note of ambiguity. We ask, was he ultimately a broken father or a misunderstood soul? Maybe both. What he left behind is more than money or fame. It is a cautionary tale about what happens when you dedicate your life to a spotlight so bright it blinds you to your own family. His family picks up the pieces, sifting through diaries, letters, and strict inheritance clauses, searching for closure that may never come. Perhaps that's the real final curtain for Gene Hackman, an actor who performed to perfection for the world, but never found true peace in his own heart. Thank you for watching. If you found this story compelling, subscribe and hit the notification bell for more deep dives into the hidden lives of Hollywood's biggest names. Remember, every legend has a story behind the scenes, sometimes more dramatic than any role they've ever played on screen.